Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the final day of our education weeks, which are part of the German Convention Bureau's summer campaign, Germany at the Heart of Future Events. I am Ursula Winterbauer, and on behalf of the German Convention Bureau, I would like to welcome you here in our virtual venue. Now, the German Convention Bureau created this campaign for event organizers who are still unable to travel internationally, especially internationally, but who would like or who need a space to reconnect with the destination. Heart of the campaign, of course, is the virtual marketplace, featuring almost 70 German partners in our 4-month virtual exhibition. And all of our partners look forward to reconnect with you and look forward to you visiting their individual stands and exhibition halls. Before we start, please note the session is being recorded for your convenience, and it can be accessed through our library here in the virtual venue shortly. So we'll put it online for you to review if you would like to do so. And also, please feel free to ask any questions at any time via the chat function. We will address them after the session, during or after the session. And do send us your comments, your questions. We look forward to chatting with you. But now, let me introduce our speaker. Speaking to us today from Minneapolis is Kathryn Frankson, Director of Event Marketing with Informa, who will share some insights on how to design and market an event using a proven framework. And now, thank you for joining us, Kathryn. I'm so happy to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here and welcome everyone. Yeah, it's an exciting time to be in the events industry, that's for sure. So today what we're going to be running through is how you move from confusion to confidence and design a winning event marketing strategy. Obviously, we're in a really interesting landscape in terms of events, and so much has changed. And so what we found is having a process that walks you through how you can get the event built that you need to and drive towards the results that you need is more important than ever. So we've got a challenge, which is that there is no event playbook, and yet events have never been more important. This was really the last year and a half. If you're in the events industry, we know this. I mean, we know that everything had to cancel because of COVID-19. And then we had our fork in the road moment, which was how do you pause, and then how quickly do you move into virtual? And in many ways, that was, certainly a challenging time, but easier in terms of the decision-making process. We had one option, everyone was grounded. We knew we had to go the virtual route. And so we started to scale that. And that's exactly what happened, is that virtual events scaled. Our audiences had access to more information than ever. And really, they were able to experience more events than ever. So there was this new opportunity, but a new challenge, because we're designing for more events. We knew that we wanted to deliver more content. This was the way that we could connect with our buyers, but how do we continue to make them engaging? How do we design so people actually sign up? How do we then get them to attend? So it was a whole new host of challenges that we were really facing. And the solution that we're driving towards is custom audience-driven design. So that's what we're going to talk about today, a 3-step strategic event and marketing framework, so that you have a new way of thinking in terms of end-to-end event design, how you market, and how you reflect on the data that you have and the decisions that you're making for your event in new ways that allow you to stay competitive in the landscape and keep up with the pace of change that we're all trying to keep our finger on the pulse of. So the first step that we're going to talk about is reinvention. And first of all, I want to congratulate you, because you are now a product marketer. Within marketing, the scope overall, you could identify as an event marketer, you could be a field marketer, you could be demand gen, brand, content. But if you have a seat at the event planning table, and this is now in your field of vision, then you really need to think product first. And this is the reinvention side of it. typically with our events, and we have a little bit more of this context now with the scale to virtual and all of the new event tech that has come forward, and now with the evolution into hybrid and solving for that. But we realized that a lot of us had pretty similar event structures, whether it was a user conference, a conference and trade show, whether it was field marketing events, client events, sales kickoffs. Often the framework that we had for that was pretty similar year to year. We were changing our keynotes, we were changing tracks, we were doing different stage sets, but by and large, we kind of knew what we were working with. But that doesn't hold true this year, even as we do start to return to in real life events in certain markets. So reinvention, having that at the cornerstone of your event plans and thinking product first is extremely critical. And it's because designing a product that your audience wants is one of the best ways that you can stay competitive. It can't just be around content. It can't just be around location. You have to really think, and as a team, be joined up and say, square one, and we're going to keep this top of mind during our whole planning session. What is the product that keeps us competitive and that we want to deliver? And I think when you think of an event as a little bit more of a product, bells and whistles, and you think really tactically about it, it can put you in the right frame of mind. So when you're thinking, when you're walking through, okay, we know that we need to reinvent, these are the three critical questions that are going to help you back into what that event is actually going to look like, how it takes shape, what you really need to deliver in terms of the experience. And that is, what are the new problems our customers need help solving? Can't stress this enough. We know, I mean, really anyone in the event industry, we've realized and we're living how quickly our needs are changing. I mean, initially it might have been around safety, funding, force majeure, how do you handle cancellations and contracts? What are the rules around that? Then it was, how do I do virtual events? Now we're in a lot of heavy hybrid conversations. We're still trying to decide what's the right mix of when we can go back in person. And so I say that as an example of needs are evolving at a more rapid pace than they ever have been. So if your event, and especially if it's a really content-rich event, if you're maybe using some of the same speakers or you have some of the same tracks, you might need to rethink that. Those critical questions around what really are our customers' problems, what can we help them solve? And it's important because it could be changing week to week, it could be changing month to month. So if you're running a virtual event series, or you're doing a virtual event as a lead up to a larger scale hybrid or potentially an in-person event, you're going to need to take those insights and the content and be really agile with it, so that you know that, great, every event that we're delivering, we are solving a need that is right at the tip of the spear. It is what they're dealing with right now. The second question you want to ask is, what is the type and amount of content that our audience needs to do just that? So it could be, great, they're in an industry that was decimated. Maybe it's the food service industry. Okay, how do we create a series that will allow them to get the ongoing resources they need? If your audience is tech, they could be booming. They could have an influx. Maybe they don't have the bandwidth to attend as many events. However, if they're shorter, pithier, addressing really impactful topics, available live and on demand, other events, if they're sponsor led, and that content is really rich and part of your programming, you might say, you know what, we're going to incentivize people to attend live and less so on demand, because we really want that interactive experience. So the amount of content that's needed to solve those problems, you don't just want to set it and forget it. Say, okay, well, we want to do a series, we want to have a touch point, we have something to market every single week. That's also become the beauty of virtual events, is it's a great marketing channel. It gives us something to talk about, but you really want to be laser focused on, we're solving these problems, we're really connected to those audience segments, and we know that based on the type of information they need, they actually realistically need this amount of content in these formats, or they might need a little bit less, so we're going to deliver on that. And then actually we can run a different event solving a different problem or targeted at a different audience segment. Third question that you want to ask is, how do we create an experience that's worth investing and indulging in? And I say indulging because, time, especially if we're talking about virtual, 80% of virtual events are free, sponsor supported, but it's a value exchange in terms of time for your audience. And so you're rewarding them, with this great content and experience, but it's also, as we were talking about in the beginning, virtual has scaled. So your audience has had a chance for the first time to really opt into, in many ways, more events than they ever have. So the experience is really important. And you want to think of it as they're going to be indulging in this. They're going to be, closing their browsers on their computer. They're not going to be working for this amount of time. They're, going to be ignoring kids and dogs at home. So how do we make it feel really special? What is something that we can add in that would be a surprise, that would be a delight, that would perhaps be unexpected? And that's going to also carry some weight. So next, you move into audience and data analysis. And this is where we really get into the meat of some of the marketing components. And that is, who is your ideal client? This is changing. There's a new world. Our audiences are working in new ways. They're living in new ways. They're probably working from home. Their jobs may have changed. And so your ideal client, who you can target with an event series or with a larger scale virtual event, may have changed. There might be new opportunity for you in the market to look at that. So take a look at point 2, who are your current clients? That's an easy one to back into. Usually we just all sort of know it inherently. I do actually recommend, though, if you haven't, and maybe if your marketing team, your full marketing team, isn't as close to the hard and fast client list, you might know the logos, you might know a little bit of the 80-20 split there. But if you use a CRM, you can let your marketing teams actually get into that data and look at, this is who's closing now. These are our active clients. This is who we've lost in the past year. If you look at a 3-year window and say, wow, this is really interesting, we're going to do just a quick pivot table and see who we've retained, who have we lost, how has that mix changed. Sometimes we really might know it inside and out. Other times we might sort of have a sense of it because we're so tied to our key accounts, but that might not be emblematic of actually the volume of clients that we have coming in and what that audience mix really is. So it can be a really worthwhile exercise to actually take a look at that. In terms of 19 and 20 audience data, certainly now, we're halfway through 2021. So we've got a bit of that to work off of too, but where are you at with your marketing analytics? And does everyone have that in scope? And are you tracking against that in terms of all of your channel metrics? So usually marketers are looking at attribution, and we kind of have everything broken down. Here's how we're performing on our websites. These landing pages are doing really well. Socials up. Here's our performance from past events or webinars. But you really want to be able to have those year on year, whether it is a 2-year, just because that was such a seismic shift for audience behavior, and have your finger on a pulse of those marketing analytics. And this is sort of a sliding scale. Some people are really married day to day with all of their analytics across all of their tools and across all of their platforms. And other times you're executing and planning and you're putting out so much content that you're not living in that as much. So just make sure you're set up with having those analytics, because that's going to give you a little bit more firepower for when you have to make decisions around personas. Oh, we're going to plan, like when you're having those discussions around, great, we want to target, the event's going to be this is who we're going to target. You can say, it's interesting on our landing pages where we had this content for this persona or this audience segment, we're actually trending down there, whereas we're trending up here. I think there might be more opportunity if we program content for XYZ. So those analytics and just getting a little bit closer to them can be really powerful. What are the goals of your event? Sounds really obvious, but it can really help outside of just, okay, here's our timing, our revenue, our volume of attendees that we want to get. Having that North Star of this is what we want to deliver. Here's our why for creating this. We want people to lead with X. We really want to solve this problem. We want them to be educated about X. We've learned from our key partners or advisory boards that this isn't being addressed. When you have that North Star and your entire team knows it, it's just going to help keep everything on track and have your whole event plan cascade from there. What's your budget and business model? That's one to think about. You know, you're going to be investing in new event technology. If you think about integrations, if you think about how much you want to spend, and really being clear on that and starting with those goals, because you might say, you know what, this is the year to invest in a big keynote, or this is actually going to be much more of an intimate, curated experience. You know, we don't need to put budget on that side of things because this is actually what we're trying to deliver. Maybe it's continuing education rich. So having those discussions and really sinking into it fully as a team can make a difference, because again, we're coming from a landscape where sometimes we kind of know the drill and we get rolling and marketing and, you know, do your thing and sales, start selling sponsorships and ops, you know, you'll run the event, but these critical conversations can make such a difference. And then also, what is your feedback loop in terms of research and customer feedback? Surveys at the end of event, obviously super common, but make sure that you are doing that. Are you running any market research? Is there a way for you to find out what your customers want next? Or are you positioning what they want out of an event correctly right now? And investing in either finding a way to facilitate some of that research or investing in it can make a really big difference, just because usually our audience needs, especially since COVID, are changing so rapidly that it can be hard to stay on the finger of the pulse of new audience segments or those non-key super fan, highly engaged clients where you have the opportunity for growth. So thinking about, if you're so busy running events, which most of us are, and you're doing the survey after and you're getting that insight, make sure that that's accessible to everyone, it's curated, and also have a real think about, do we feel like we need to actually be running market research, audience research, something in a more formalized way, just so we have a tool to stay competitive. Maybe that helps with our product roadmaps, and it gives us insights that we just wouldn't get unless someone is filling out our survey, and that can make a really significant difference. All right, 2, we're moving into revenue. So new revenue capture for your virtual and hybrid events. Within this, there's 3 steps: reposition, retrain, and repackage. So we're gonna talk about all 3. The first is reposition. This might again sound really obvious, but don't compete against, if you were running an in-person event, do not compete against the in-person version of that event, especially when you're talking about sponsors and exhibitors. You need to create a new category that your event exists within, supported by analytics, supported by new data around audience engagement. But you know, and we've learned some of this is going, but where initially when we were trying to take partners and sort of fit them into these new formats, and sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't work, and the digital side of it was new, and how do these booths work, and how do I get integrated in a big way? And it's because we don't want to compete, especially in the land of virtual events, with in-person or physical events. We really want to position this as a new digital marketing channel. That also creates new opportunity for revenue, because if we think about digital marketing channels and where companies are spending, you've got Google, Facebook, YouTube, you know, all the big channels that they're investing in terms of their paid spend. And you can make the case to take some of their budget spend away from that, as opposed to just repurposing dollars from an event budget, when we know that virtual events, and if they're investing in the hybrid side, the virtual side of a hybrid event, that it's really different as well. So when you can say, what we've got is the most engaged digital marketing channel. We can support it through analytics. We've got an omni-channel approach. You're going to get pre-event exposure through our social media, through our email campaigns, through our newsletters. We can do blog posts, we can do interviews, we can take that pillar video content from the event, we can share that after. We're going to take our event content and turn that into a white paper. Whatever it may be, when you make the case for taking spend from other digital channels and investing that into a virtual event, it gives you much more runway for your buyers and for your sales team to close some of that business, because it makes more sense. They're already going to be asking for a lot of analytics. That's the big upside and opportunity with virtual, but also what we all have to deliver on then post event. The sponsors going, great, how many people registered, how many actually attended, how active were they in chat, what was the engagement metrics, how many people were in my booth, how many people clicked on this product showcase bag. So it's great. You have to support that with the traffic that you get to your event, but that's really where you want to be pitching, because that creates an opportunity for, I know what your CPMs are, average CPMs through these digital channels. We can actually beat that because we have an audience that's opting in. It's high intent, they're engaged. These are what our expectations are in terms of turnout, because we're solving really interesting problems. Our content is super valuable. No one else in our industry is producing content to this degree. And that's really where you're going to see a little bit more partner pickup. Retrain, sales teams who are selling virtual events. And if you're optimizing the revenue capture on the sponsorship side and on the exhibitor side, as opposed to charging for attendees and delegates, it can be a little laborious. It's a new product. It's less, here's our floor plan, and pick your booth space or your key sponsorship. A lot of what we had to with some of those in-person experiences was limited inventory that we had sort of working in our favor. So when we think of retraining our sales and our business development teams, this is really about marketing stepping in and being so much closer to that process. So you don't want your sales teams just running demos and demos and demos, when really they also know that they need to be strategizing. They need to be putting together really interesting and compelling case studies for clients, having those conversations, putting themselves in sort of helper mode as opposed to just hear the logistics mode. So as much as marketing can step in and say, here's how we're optimizing the process of sharing virtual analytics with sponsors, we've updated our sales materials, this is how we're enabling that. That's going to help drive more revenue. Another component of this is focus on new package creation. If we think of sponsorship levels, previously it's often gold, silver, we've got a crystal sponsor. And this is really within the virtual landscape because we can be so creative. We were certainly creative in physical events too, but a lot of it was, here's where we can put your logo here and we can build this experience, but we really have endless capabilities virtually. So you can think of repurposing your packages by the problems that you're actually solving for your clients. So you can say, instead of a gold sponsorship, we've actually got a product launch sponsorship, or here's a lead generation sponsorship. Here's an opportunity if they have a new CMO. This is your CMO, put them on the radar sponsorship, but it's really rooted in creating something new that your sales team can use. And audience analytics, your sales teams are going to have to support these buys with sponsors, and especially with some of your more key sponsorship investments with audience analytics. So make sure that you're being really proactive with that, and you have a process for serving those back to your sales team. And the third is repackage. So this is sort of an out with the old and in with the new. And when you do kind of tee up, okay, we're moving away from our gold, silver, and bronze sponsorships, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to sell these new packages based on challenger sales, which is what I would recommend. It creates new opportunities for upsells then, which is another thing that you want to consider with your funnel. So if you've sold your lead generation sponsorship and they've had some success with that and you're able to deliver, a good volume of leads, your sales teams can follow up and say, hey, so glad you had success at the event. One of the things that we've seen is that sales teams are running really lean and it can be hard to nurture all of those leads through the funnel. We actually have a lead nurture sponsorship that's going to help you, get to where you need to be, or let us help you follow up with this, or great, we know that you were promoting your new CMO. They did a great job introing the keynote and doing that Q&A, or however you've integrated them into the content. But now we want to make sure that there's not drop off there. What we can build in to this program for a quarterly follow-up are XYZ. We anticipate you'll get this number of impressions. And so having those new packages also gives you new conversation starters, even moving beyond that. And moving into bucket number 3 is rule breaking. I say this because, we want to get ourselves in a new frame of mind. Most of us really are, but I think the areas where it's easy to get stuck, events are a lot of work. There's so much logistically, there's so much tactically that has to happen, that just has to get done for these events to come to fruition. And we need to find so many speakers. And if we do have a sponsorship revenue goal, your sales teams are really actively trying to find someone who's the right fit, and do they have budget, and does the timing work, and do they, are they confident about virtual events? So it can be so easy to just slip into, we have to get all of the work done. And when you can kind of keep this new idea of, well, while we're doing that, we also really need to break some rules here, because we don't have to think outside of the box. There is no box. Everything has so fundamentally changed, and brands can really be much more open, much more creative, certainly across the B2B space, even more than they have been. And, I think looking at it is like, okay, well, what are some of the traditional, event rules or event marketing rules that we can actually break, can offer you a creative mindset for thinking differently about your campaigns. So a new marketing process. This is where you're really going to get into, we've built the event, we've created this structure, this experience that we think people are really going to love going to. We've got our goals defined. We feel like we've got a process for our sales team. If revenue is part of your plan, which I think everyone has certainly moved into, we've got new packages. Our sales team is armed with a new way to sell this. And now we need to get a lot of attendees and delegates to the event. We really know that we want this experience to be rich and well attended, and that's going to fall on what's the new marketing process that allows you to tell these event stories, stand out in the marketplace in new ways, and not get lost in the shuffle of any of your competitors. So these are the components that we're going to run through. So the first is your marketing plans. Typically with events, we've got, say we open reg, depending on your event cycle, it could be 8 weeks pre-event, could be 20 weeks pre-event. For virtual, sometimes we're seeing 4-week event cycles, but within that marketing plan where you typically go, registration's open, here's our weekly plan, all the way to send the thank you and the survey link. You want to make some adjustments there, which is that you now want to have a macro and a micro marketing plan. Often it's easy to say, okay, well, this is what we need to do. Here are the channels that we need to be on. We know we need to have social content, email. We're going to run some paid media. We're going to do some video editing. We know that we need to have barters and co-sponsors of the event. We need PR. You start to build all of that out and go, okay, this is what we need to say each week, and this is how this is going to go. And that's great. That's your macro plan. But the micro is where you need to leave room for agility. There's something in the news that week that's really interesting and timely. Be able to pick that up and use it in your campaign. When Clubhouse was having its moment and people were doing rooms, hop into that, see if your speakers can do that. And I think one of the important components about the micro side of this too is that your event marketing teams have the authority to run with some of those creative elements. That could already be the case in your team, but if you do have a process of we're getting approvals, obviously we want everyone to proof everything. Sometimes maybe a little bit of that uber creative, magic can get lost, amongst having a big editing process. So this is really where you want to empower marketing to say, we're going to keep our eye on things. We're going to be watching social. We're going to be watching our analytics. Anything that we think is timely or interesting or attention getting, we're going to use that in our marketing campaigns. And we're not necessarily going to have everything roll up for approvals or everything roll up to that master campaign. This is where we really get to have our finger on the pulse and be creative. Bold creative process. So here's a quick mini framework within our 3-part framework for ideation about how to be more creative, because I think sometimes it's easy to go, be creative. And like, well, where do I look for inspiration? So a couple of things that you can do that will give you new content for your actual campaigns. Use your customers' words. You don't have to come up with all of your own copy. Look at your surveys, look at what they're saying on social media. If there's a way, if instead of saying, oh yeah, we want to see exhibitors, if they say we're looking for eye-popping technology, you can use that. Actually pull out your customers' words from any of the survey data that you have. If you've got open text fields, if you got a shared inbox where they're asking questions, you can use that as some new language. Another place to look for inspiration is podcast headlines. Just open the podcast app right on your phone. All of those headlines are, made to really get your attention, and it can be just a great way to steal something and then, put in your own keywords there. Facebook ads library. So Facebook has a library of every ad that's running. That's a lot of ads. That's a lot of creative. You can search by industry, you can search by sector, you can search by company. And so sometimes if you just go like, what is everyone else doing? Pop in there, type in company name, people that you think do great marketing, other people in your industry, and use that as a way to get some new inspiration for your campaigns. Inventory audit. This is one that I think is really important when you lay out all of your communications for your event. From the registration is open or we're inviting you, all the way to that last survey link, even if you want to look at what you did last year, look at that and say, what can we tweak that would be really remarkable? What would be innovative there? Maybe it's a subject line, maybe it's a new word for this, maybe we didn't use key graph, maybe it could be a GIF, maybe it could just add something innovative on all of those little touches, on your verification campaigns, on your thank yous, because those small moments, the tweak to the know before you go email or the login link email, those can really make you stand out. Storytelling. We know that it's really important to tell stories, but I also think sometimes it can be like, what's the key story to tell? Look for customer insights. If you post on social regularly and there's one topic that seems to be getting the most engagement, just pull that out and tell that story. You don't always have to be reinventing the wheel or thinking creatively or starting from square one. Anything that you're pushing out, or even if you look at anything that your competitors are getting traction on, and just say, well, okay, realistically, these are the stories that our audience is interested in, and we'll take that and we'll put our own slant on it. So you do want to be thinking, obviously, not just about tactics and logistics, and most marketers aren't, but if there's a storyline that you can weave throughout, why should someone care? Why is this different? Why is this compelling? What personalities will people be attracted to? And then within that, what's new about that story? What would capture someone's attention? If you hear something for the first time, usually it's sort of the rule of, if you hear something internally and you're confused, your customers are, and often if you're throwing around ideas and you get excited about it and you're curious, that will translate to your audience as well. And the last is offers, hooks and headlines. Make them so good that it's uncomfortable. So we talked about headlines a little bit with podcasts. That's a great place to find some good headlines, but we often focus so much on copy and imagery and branding and UX, and that's all critically important. But if no one's opening your emails and no one's getting past the hero image or the upper half of your page on any of your landing pages, or they're not expanding any of your social posts, then your messages aren't being seen. So put a lot of attention into any hooks, meaning any offers, anything you want them to do, and the headlines of your campaigns. Put a lot of attention into it. Put a lot of attention into the subject lines of your emails. And if you are going to run an offer, make it really, really, really good. We've all seen offers from time to time where you go, oh, I don't know, that's not, enough to make me change my whole day or register for something. So if you are going to run that, challenge yourself to say like, oh, we're almost a little uncomfortable if people would take advantage of this. That's how you know it's really impactful. That's how you know it's going to resonate with your audience. And that's going to give you the highest propensity to actually stand out and have success within those marketing campaigns. So we ran through our 3-step process. We talked about building product first, reinventing how you're actually structuring your event, how you're looking at data, how you're joining up your teams through having those really critical conversations, and then also a new revenue approach so that your sales teams have a bigger opportunity to sell, monetize your events, and move everything downstream. And then also some new marketing tactics so that you can really be bold and be creative and have a really successful second half of 2021.
Well, thank you very much, Kathryn, for this really insightful presentation. I think you provided really a lot of food for thought, a lot of takeaways. At least I've taken lots of notes already. So definitely a lot of things to take away. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to have a look at the chat. I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions coming in a moment. But now, what I really like the picture about creating events that are worth indulging in. I really like this idea. So, but how do you have any tips to ensure the audiences actually join your event?
Yes. So there's sort of the logistics side of it, I would say, which is, typically we get people to register and sometimes marketing thinks like, oh, okay, my job is a little bit done here, but it's not. So you actually have to have the right cadence with your verification campaigns. You can err on sort of your confirmation emails, your reminder emails, we call them verifications, err on the side of more than you think that you would need. So even within the 24 hours before, so obviously sending calendar invites, oftentimes if you have a community manager, sending personal reminders on LinkedIn, so that way they have a reminder, they've got that LinkedIn invite, they've got it on their actual calendar, you're sending reminders up to it. And then even within that 24-hour window, 24 hours, 2 hours before, 1 hour before, about to go live, that can really help because you're building up this sense of momentum. Include a little bit of social proof in that. Oh, we've already got so many people logged in. You don't want to miss the keynote. This is how many people we have registered, some screenshots from past events that can really help. I also think another component that you can do is if you've promoted your event and people have registered, you can save a surprise announcement for those confirmation emails that's going to sort of get them across the finish line. So you've provided enough value for them to go, okay, yeah, I'll save this on my calendar. I'm going to go to this. And then they get those and it's even more exciting. It's even more enticing. And that might seem counterintuitive because we want to provide all the value up front, but you're right. It's a tall ask it's one thing to get people to register. It's another thing to get people on the event. So staggering a little bit of content for those emails can be helpful.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Another thought. Now we've all had a very steep learning curve when it comes to using and implementing various technical tools. Do you have any insights on avoiding any technical mishaps? Which I'm sure we've all had a number of in the last month.
We have all had many.
We could all share our stories there.
It's true. It's unavoidable. I think we all know we're at the point where partnering with the right, event technology platform, choosing the right event tech that works for us, testing it. But I will say a hard and fast tip internally, because of course you're running, speaker tech checks. And if you have exhibitors, you're running exhibitor tech checks, but, having having everything set up with your team internally. So you've got someone front facing for your event, you've got someone back of the house running the tech. We do a WhatsApp group, but we've got channels by what the technical issue could be. So if it's related to registration, if it's, oh, some people are saying they didn't get their link, then whoever is triaging that can respond to that really quickly.
Mhm.
If it's a sponsor is, locked out of their booth or their video functionality isn't working and they want to schedule that appointment, then, that backend tech can run into that. So there's also a little bit of, do as much on the front end, but the reality is we're still all people running events. So I think the other part of it is having that day of plan, especially if you're doing a really large scale event, having that day of plan for communication with your team and clear owners for who can solve anything that also might happen as quickly as possible, because then that's going to help alleviate some of that panic.
Yeah, and that's what we're all trying to avoid and
all trying to avoid. We are.
Excellent, very, very good hints and tips. Yes. What would you say? What marketing channels are most popular, or anything to avoid?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think it depends really on the event, but just
it does.
Generally, yeah,
it does depend on the event. But I mean, like every channel can be a great channel. So there's kind of the rule of, be where your audience is. Certainly early on, actually, when everyone was talking about Clubhouse for a while, and we had some events where it's like, that's not where our attendees are. But email doesn't always get the love that it should. It's not as sort of fun as social and paid social media, but it's really powerful. I'd say spend a significant amount of time there in terms of what you're messaging, how you're running, if you are set up for email automation, what those cadences are. If you have a big email list, that's a great way to get people into your event. So still focus on email, but certainly paid. I mean, the beauty with paid or with using influencers is that you're just buying all of the traffic and reach that you want. And if you're watching your conversions and you have everything optimized for it to be easy for people to come into your event and you're targeting really well, you can see high performance with those channels as well.
Excellent. I think let me have a quick look at the chat, but I think nothing else. I think all questions have been answered. So thank you very much. And I think we are perfectly in time for our session. So this brings us to the end of the session. And I'd like to thank you, Kathryn, once again for joining us and for speaking to us today. Also, thank you to our audience for being here with us today. Now, we will continue this afternoon at 5:30 p.m. Central European Summer Time for our final session with Eric Antonis from Mice Media, who will talk to us about how to choose the right event technology and platform. So stay tuned for more lectures, for more education. And of course, while you're here in the GCB's virtual venue, why not have a look around the virtual exhibition, meet with some of the German partners, find out what's new in Germany and how Germany has prepared for the new now. So simply click on the summer campaign exhibition in the navigation menu. It will take you through a quick registration process, and when you're able to browse through the 360-degree exhibition halls, the virtual meeting rooms, individual stands, and our exhibition partners from Germany. Look forward to meeting you all. So thank you once again. Goodbye for now. I would certainly look forward to welcoming you back on another occasion, Kathryn. So we'll be in touch, and thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.